Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the November edition of the Data Quality Network. As always, you can find the materials at dataqualitynetwork.net and click Meeting Info. I'd like to thank Carol and Dan and Jody and Barry for their contributions to our special ed focused session last month. Today we'll focus on child accounting, and one thing I'd like to highlight right away is something that we want to do at the very end of today, and that is a Data Summit registration giveaway. It is for one free registration. So here is the link. If you haven't clicked yet, click that link. If you're not an IU point of contact, that is, and put your information in, and we will do a drawing live in front of everybody. This is one of those embarrass yourself in front of your friends, try it for the first time spinning wheel drawing that we'll do at the very end and let you know. So if you're still here at the end and we draw your name, otherwise we'll just keep spinning until we find somebody. Shameless plug here for the Data Summit in March. Sign up as soon as you can. And without further ado, then we will send it over to IU15 to kick us off.
All right, good morning, everyone. Today we have Lori here from PDE who will be doing a presentation on child accounting membership. So we'll hand it over to her to get started.
Okay, hi everyone. I'm Lori Sieber. I work for the Pennsylvania Department of Education, and I am the coordinator of child accounting. So what that means is I manage the child accounting uploads to PIMS, which includes primarily the school calendar and the student calendar fact. The reason why child accounting is so important is because it is what is used for your subsidies. So today we're going to talk about the summary of child accounting, which is very important for you to make sure that you are being, the correct membership is being attributed to your LEA so that you're receiving the correct subsidies. So first of all, where do I find the report? So folks tend to go into PIMS reports and they are expecting to see it there. It is not in PIMS reports. So when you go onto the PDE website.
Any way for me to temporarily hook this into screen?
Oh, I think we have an open mic here. Just a reminder for all the IUs to mute their mics.
So when you go onto the PDE website at education.pa.gov, you go to the bottom of the screen and you will see My PDE Suite. You click on that, and then you will choose Access My PDE Suite, and it's going to ask you to sign in. When you sign in, you're going to see all of the applications from PDE that you have available to you. This particular report is in the CAD application, which is CAD. If you don't see that in your applications, you may want to ask your systems administrator to get that for you. There is no data entry into the CAD system, so there's really no reason why you wouldn't be able to have it as a read-only application. In the CAD application, there are two choices of reports. There are the final summary and the preliminary summary. Final summaries are at the end of the year when we finalize PIMS and we close PIMS for that year. You will see the final summaries for all the prior years. 16-17 is the most recent final summary that's out there. We are finishing up 17-18. The window is still open for child accounting, so we are working on preliminary summaries for that school year at this point. There was one published, I believe, last week. There will be another one published in the middle of December. So when I run this report, well, a couple of things about this report before we move forward. It is a static report, so it does not update like your PIMS reports do. PIMS reports, of course, update twice a day in production, but the summary of child accounting is a static report, so the date that you see on that report is the date that the data was pulled from PIMS. So if you made changes after that date, you will not see them until the next summary is published. The other thing that people tend to get confused on with the summary is that it is a school district report. So if you are an LEA other than a school district and you try to find your name in there, you will not find it. This is all membership in the state of Pennsylvania is attributed to a school district, and that's what you're going to see on this report. So if you're an IU or a CTC or a charter school, when you list your funding district on any of the student calendar fact records, it's always going to be a school district, and that's going to be on their summary of child accounting. Some of the other things you need to do to verify the reports is to talk with your business office. It's really important to talk with your business office, your special ed office, and other LEAs to make sure that the data in there is correct. So you're probably receiving invoices from charter schools, you're receiving invoices from your IU and maybe other districts. Those invoices should show you the number of days that you should expect from to be attributed to your district. When you go into the CAD application to find this report, right above the reports, there is a hyperlink there that you can choose guidelines to review the report. So it gives you some ideas of what to look for in each of those sections. So that's always very helpful, and those are some of the things we're going to talk about here today. What is the source of the data in there? It is the data that is in PIMS. So when you upload your school calendar, when you upload your student calendar fact, it will be pulled into these sections based on the residence status code, based on the calendar program code that you have listed with it. And we'll talk about some of the different sections, how that's being pulled. So the summary of child accounting is divided into sections, and each of the sections has a letter and number name. So the very first section, this is going to be the section that has most of your membership in it. This is section A1. The membership that is included in this section is going to be the resident membership that your district uploaded for resident students that you educated. So this will be your biggest group. It will be separated by calendar. You'll be able to see the calendar ID. It will also be separated. You'll also be able to see the days in session for each of those calendars as well. It is aggregate data. You are not going to see the names of any students on here. It's going to be the total number of days that the students were enrolled, the total number of aggregate days. So keep in mind if you had percentages of time, that it will reduce the membership a little bit by that. So it will have that information in there. And this is, again, all of the resident membership that the district is educating and uploaded. That's the easy one. Section A2, this is the membership. If you are sending your students to a career and technical program, maybe it's a half-day program, maybe it's a full-day program, depending on what's available in your area, that AVTS operated membership should be showing up in section A2. When you look at section A2, again, this is your resident membership. You're never going to see any 1305 membership here or wards of state membership here. So this is resident membership that that you contracted with a CTC to provide the education for those students. In the case of this membership, you have some sort of contract with your CTC. I imagine some of them are a little different. It may be by student, I don't know, but you would have to look at your agreement with the ABTS to see how this membership is being paid for. Of course, talk with your business office if you need to as well. Section A3 is your IU membership. The IU membership in this section, again, is resident membership that has been uploaded by any of the IUs that you have a contract with or that your students are being educated by, perhaps in a facility or some other setting. In this case, the IU is going to be invoicing you, or you have some sort of contract with them. And again, it's all resident membership in this section. Section B, this one you probably don't have too much membership in, so if you're seeing a lot of membership in this section, you might want to take a second to review it. The membership in Section B is any students who are non-public students or students who are being homeschooled who come to your district for part of the day, or to the IU for part of the day, or to the CTC for part of the day. The way we identify these students is by the student status code. Now that student status code is actually located in the student file. So for the homeschool students, that student status code is A. For the non-publics, it's O. So if you had entered that into the student file and you didn't change it, the students are still going to show up here. Now in the student file, that field is updatable. So it's looking at whatever was uploaded last. So if you look at this and you say, well, I really didn't have that many students who were homeschooled. They were homeschooled the prior year, but I just forgot to take off that code. You'll want to go into the student file, re-upload it with the correct student status code, and that will take care of that section for you. So if, take a look at that. I did have, I believe it was an IU last year, accidentally put either an A or an O on all their memberships. So it was a little confusing to folks because they were seeing it in this section when they weren't expecting to. It isn't going to affect your subsidies, but it doesn't make sense for it to be there if it shouldn't be. Section C is where you're going to find your institutionalized children's program membership, better known as ICP. These are very specific programs that are run by individual IUs. And if you're interested in seeing the different IUs and the programs that they run, you can look in Appendix R. That will have the calendar program codes that are associated with each of these ICPs. The membership is pulled here based on the calendar program code, which again is specific to an IU and specific to the ICP itself. You should have received some information from the IU for these students. You should have received a 4605, and you would have acknowledged that the student was yours. Again, it's resident membership listed here, and this one you're not paying the IU for. The IU is paid up front for this membership based on their budget, but you will see a deduction from your June 1st basic ed funding for the students who are in here. So you want to double check it, make sure it's correct. If you have questions, contact the IU and work it out to see if that membership is adequate. Okay, the next two sections, D1 and D2, are both for private residential rehabilitative institutions, which are the PRRIs. Students could be placed in this type of institution in two different ways. And the students whose membership is showing in section D1 are the students who were court placed into that facility. So court has placed in there, you weren't part of that placement, the court placed in there. The PRI does upload the membership, you'll see it in section D1. You would have probably seen a 4605 for these students. Occasionally you might have a contract, but generally speaking, you'll see a 4605. These could be residential or day programs. A lot of them are residential, but there are a few that do run some day programs. And again, you're not, for this particular group of students in the data that's in this section, you will not be receiving an invoice from the PRI for these students. However, this again is a deduction from your basic ed funding. So you want to make sure that it's correct, because you have really no way to, when it's an invoice, you can not pay the invoice for a while until you get it figured out. In this case, you don't have a choice. It will be deducted from your basic ed funding calculation. So D2 are the students who were not court placed. Generally speaking, you probably have a contract with them. You may have placed them there yourself. They're usually students who have some other issues, and they've been placed there for some sort of similar issue to the court placed students. You either would have had a contract with them, you may have received a 4605 depending on how the placement occurred. And in this case, you are paying them directly. So you will see an invoice for the students in this section. So if you have 180 days membership in here, you would expect to see an invoice from the PRI for a similar, for the same amount of days. Okay, my least favorite two sections, because I get so many questions about these guys. So sections E1 and E2 are for the approved private schools, And for the new folks, you have to be a little careful here because when we say approved private school, sometimes you think that that's any licensed private school. These are very specific programs again. APSs are very specific programs. If you go on Edna, if you're not sure if an LEA falls into this category, you can go on to Edna on the PDE website, and at the bottom of the homepage, you can search. You could also search, this is another place you could search for the PRIs as well to see who they are. But if you click on the approved private school box and you run a search, you'll see all of the approved private schools that fall into this category. Now, for this category, for Section E1, this is one of the ones where you're going to need to work together with your special ed folks, because students who appear in Section E1 are students who have a 4010 approval. Now, that might not mean anything to you as the technical person or the child accounting person, but if you talk to your special ed folks, they will understand exactly what you're talking about. This is an approval that's between PDE's Bureau of Special Ed and your special ed department and the APS, indicating that this student should be in a 4010 slot at this particular APS. One of the biggest questions I get about this section is, I know I have 3 students in APSs, there's nothing in there, why isn't there? At this point, there is nothing in Section E1 for anybody on the Summary of Child Accounting for 17-18. Of course, for prior years that have been finalized, you will see that data. But for the current preliminary, you will not see that data. It will likely not be there until January. There's a potential it could be there for December, but I'm going to say January just in case. So what happens with this membership is there's a separate system that the PDE has called the APSEM system, and your special ed folks, again, should be familiar with that. The membership for this particular section, we are going to pull directly from that system, not from PIMS. So the APS does upload the membership to PIMS, but in the end, for subsidy purposes, we're pulling it from the APSEM system. So this is why you really need to talk to your special ed folks to make sure that they go in, run the reports out of there, and make sure any students that you have that have a 4010 approval are being reported correctly in that system. This, again, is a deduction. There's a specific payment calculation for APSs, and we won't get into that because that's more for your special ed folks and your business office. But there is a deduction from your basic ed funding, again, for this group. And my very least favorite of all the sections is Section E2. These are the approved private school students who are being educated in the APS. However, they do not have a 4010 approval. So you've placed in there, you have a contract with them. However, they don't have the 4010 approval. They are supposed to upload this membership to PIMS. However, some of them are very good about it and some of them don't do it. And I don't have a mechanism to force them to do so. So what you need to do is you need to take a look at this membership, take a look at any invoices you have, and if you need to, call the APS and say, are you going to upload this membership? And if they flat out tell you they're not going to, then what you need to do is upload that membership as a school district into your child accounting upload so that you are getting credit for these students. You want to make sure, though, that you're not double reporting. I do see folks that sometimes do that. They just automatically upload these, when I do actually have some APSs that are very good about uploading. So you need to double check and make sure that, yes, if they're not uploading, please do. I want you to have credit for them, but just make sure you're not double uploading those students. Okay, Section F, membership from other districts. So these are students who you have contracted with another school district for some reason. They're your resident students. Maybe your neighboring district has a special ed program that you don't have. Occasionally they might, I have a couple of districts who they have some advanced placement classes that they sort of share between each other. So they have some kids that go to the one district and then that district sends some kids to them. So anytime you're contracting with another district for your resident students and they're uploading that membership, you're going to see it in Section F. This membership, of course, is attributed to your district. It's included in your basic ed funding calculation. And you're going to be paying that neighboring district. So you're receiving an invoice from them for the membership that they're uploading to this particular section. Section G is your charter school membership. So if you have any students who are attending charter schools, whether they're brick and mortar or cyber, all of that membership is located in Section G. You should have, for these students, you should have a charter school notification form from them, and you would, you're either paying the charter school directly, or you're allowing PDE to deduct that the payment from your subsidy. Of course, that part's up to you. This is, again, resident membership. You're only going to see resident membership in Section G. So if you had any students who were 1305 who were attending charter schools, which happens, maybe not as frequently, you will not see them. This is only the resident membership in Section G. Okay, Section H is juveniles incarcerated in adult facilities membership. Again, this is very specific membership that is being pulled to this section based on a calendar program code from school districts who have a adult county prison in their jail in their within their boundaries, and they are either educating the students in that prison, or they're contracting with their local IU to provide that education. It's about half and half. It just depends. It depends on the school district and what they've decided to do. So they provide the members, or they provide the education here, and you would have received. It's almost exactly like a 4605, but there's a special one for this. It's called the 4605A. And again, the membership here is the funding is going to be deducted from your basic ed funding subsidy. So you want to double check and make sure that it's correct. If you have any questions, of course, either call the IU or the school district who's uploading the membership for this section. This is not detention centers. This is not court placed in Adelphi. The students in this are in an adult county prison. Section J, most of you won't have too much membership here. These are school age early intervention students who are either being educated by your school district, or more likely they're being educated by the IU that you are working with. It's only for school age, and again, we identify the students here with the calendar program code. So if you say to me, I uploaded a calendar for my early intervention students, but I'm not seeing it in Section J, the reason could be because you forgot to put that calendar program code on there. So the way it ends up in this section, like many of the sections, depends on how you've reported it. So if you reported it correctly with the EI calendar program code, you will see it in this section. Again, all of the membership so far has been resident membership. Section K is students who are attending school outside of PA. You probably don't have too many kids in this section either. There are some bordering school districts who may contract with somebody just over the border to educate their students. Of course, the out-of-state entity has no way to upload membership to PIMS, so then it falls back on the school district that has contracted with them to enter this membership into PIMS. The only way I'm going to see this membership again in this section is if you use the out-of-state calendar program code. If you put them on a separate calendar but you didn't use the code, then it's just going to fall back into Section A1 for you. So if you want to see it in a separate section on the summary of child accounting, if you have students that fall into this category, you will have to put the appropriate calendar program code to pull it to this section. So at this point on the summary of child accounting, there's kind of a little break. So if any of you are following along on your own, if you've brought it with you, there's a little break in the summary, and it gives you some totals now. And the totals here are based on the information that precedes it. So you have your district total ADM and your district total adjusted ADM. The difference between the two, for a lot of you, that number is going to be exactly the same. The difference between the two is that the adjusted ADM is going to take into account LEAs who had part-time kindergarten. So it's going to reduce it a little bit for the part-time kindergarten in the adjusted ADM. The district total WADM is, they call it the WADM. It's the weighted ADM. And if you look on the guidelines that are available to you through the link that we talked about earlier, it will explain how they're weighted. They're weighted according to grade level. So if you have half-time kindergarten, it's multiplied times 0.5. If you have full-time kindergarten and elementary students, and keep in mind elementary goes up to grade 6 for our purposes. If you have elementary students, they are multiplied times 1. And then the secondary, which for our purposes is grade 7 through grade 12, it's multiplied by 1.36. So that is the WADM, or the weighted average daily membership. The district total reduced ADM. Now, nobody has any reductions at this point for 17-18. If you had any penalties assessed because you did not meet the minimum instructional days or time, you would see your reduced ADM at this point. The adjustment factor for anybody who has no penalties is going to be 1 point, however many decimal places it has. If there was a penalty assessed on any of your calendars, that will show, the adjustment factor is going to show something less than the 1. So it'll be 0.9999 something. If it's like 0.98 or 0.97, that would mean a larger penalty for your district. Currently for 17-18, we have not put any penalties in there yet. If you look on your summary of child accounting, and it's the, let's see here, it's the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's about the 6th block over, it says penalty. If a particular calendar has a penalty associated with it, you will see something in that penalty column. If not, that penalty column will be blank. So you'll either see something like 180, meaning you didn't meet the 180 required days, or you might see 900, meaning you had an elementary calendar that did not meet the 900 hours. So that's where you're going to see this. If you know you had a penalty in a prior year and you want to see what it looks like, certainly go back and take a look at it. And you can look at that adjustment factor and you'll see that it was something less than 1. Another thing to mention about that, since we are sort of at the point where we're finishing up 17-18, the window, like I said, is still open. This might be a time where you want to go back and check. I have not sent any emails out yet for folks who have been flagged for a penalty at this point. I'm hoping to do that at the beginning of December, but this is something you certainly can check on your own. Take a look at your calendars. You want to look at your calculated days in session. You take your days in session plus any full day Act 80 days you had, and as long as they add up to 180, you don't have a problem with days. As far as instructional time, it again is based on your grade level, so you want to take a look at the calculated instructional time. The easiest way to do that is to run the instructional time summary all calendars report or the instructional time and membership report. On both of those reports, the time is calculated for you. So if you have a calendar who has any secondary students on it, it must meet at least 990. If you have a calendar that's only elementary, it must meet 900. If you have half-day kindergarten or pre-kindergarten, they must meet 450 hours. For school districts, it is days and time. And for charter schools, it's days or time. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the non-resident membership. So in this case, section L1, these are the 1305 students or their 1306 students who have been declared wards of state. So if you've reported them as a 1305, which is a traditional foster student, or if you have reported them as 1306 ward of state, meaning that they're in a facility and they have no known district of residence, you're going to see that membership in section L1. These students, you're either providing or paying for their education depending on who's up, like it could be that the CTC is uploading the membership, could be that your IU is uploading the membership. And this comes from a different funding source. This comes from the Tuition for Orphans funding subsidy. Tuition for Orphans is a little different. The basic ed funding subsidy is based on a calculation that has a lot of complexities to it, and you probably need to talk to your business manager to see how that breaks down if you're interested. But Tuition for Orphans subsidy, that's a little easier. That is strictly your it's your tuition rate. So that your tuition rates, of course, are posted on the PDE website. If you have any students who are in section L1, you will be paid based on your tuition rate for the students, those students' membership. Of course, it's prorated based on the number of days and the number of ADMs. Section L2 is again falling under the Tuition for Orphans subsidy. These are students, you're only going to have students in this section if you are one of the school districts who has a county prison within your boundaries and you are either educating or contracting with your IU to educate. The students in this one would have to be 1306 wards of state. There can't be 1305 in the jail. And again, this is Tuition for Orphans subsidy. It will be paid to the host district because they're the ones responsible for the students in the jail. Okay, now we have a couple of sections again that are calculated. So section M is the district operated secondary career and technical education programs. These are programs that are identified by the calendar program code ACTP, and the membership in this section was uploaded by your school district. This would include both the resident and the non-resident membership for that calendar program code. So you certainly could have some 1305 students in there. You're likely going to have a lot of 1302 students in there. This membership again is important and to make sure that you have correct based on the calendar program code, because your district is receiving additional funding for the students in this section, and you're going to be paid basically a vocational subsidy for those students. Every year we have some LEAs that forget to put the calendar program code, the ACTP calendar program code, on their calendar. Even if you have a separate calendar for those students, if you don't have the calendar program code on it, we can't recognize them to pay that vocational subsidy. So you need to make sure that that calendar program code is on there. The other big mistake I see with the membership in this section is that the school district creates a separate calendar with the ACTP calendar program code, but nobody remembered to change the calendar ID for the students who should be associated there, and they all got uploaded to the regular high school calendar. So you need to be really careful with that. Make sure you have the correct students in this section so that your district is being paid the correct vocational subsidy. If you find out that you made that second mistake and they're all in your high school calendar, keep in mind that that calendar ID is a key field. So if you need to make that correction, you're going to have to ask for deletion of the incorrect records before you upload, or you'll end up having duplicates of those students. Section N is the career and VOTEC membership that's uploaded by the CTC or the ABTS. This will again include the resident and non-resident membership. It's the total that has been attributed to your district. I know one of the things that we've been trying to encourage everyone to do is, if you know that you have a 1305 student who you're reporting as 1305 on your district membership, who's also going to the CTC, you need to make sure that they're also reporting them as 1305 so that you're getting credit for 1305 in both of those places. So that's just something I wanted to throw in there as well. In this case, the membership that's in this section, the CTC is going to be receiving the vocational subsidy for those students. But of course, the membership also appeared in your section A2 and is included in your basic ed funding calculation. So the membership is being paid for in two different ways in two different places. One of the big questions we get about this section is that it does not equal section A2, and that's to be expected because there are some additional calculations done in section N. If you're interested in looking at specifically what would be different, you can certainly look at the guidelines in there. I believe that the part-time membership is doubled, and I always forget which one, but it's full day is also doubled. Full-time is not doubled. So full day and full-time are two different things. Depends on the type of CTC that you have. So if you're looking for those to equal, I know some folks are always trying to reconcile everything that they can. They are not going to equal what's in Section A2. Section O is any secondary and career and technical education charter school operated programs. I believe there is only currently one charter school that has an approved career and technical program. Again, the membership in this program is going to be identified by a calendar program code, and the charter school would have uploaded this. And in this case, the charter school would receive the vocational subsidy for any students here. Unlikely that you're going to see membership in this section because, like I said, it is so limited. And I believe, like I said, at this point, I think there is only one charter school, and it's I think it's one of the universals. Okay, Section P, again, these are all calculated sections that we're talking about now. This is the tuition rate ADM. And what this is going to take into account is any resident and non-resident membership that's uploaded into PIMS by the resident school district. It also includes any resident membership uploaded by the IU, and any non-resident 1306 membership uploaded by the IU for which the school district is the host. So this is one, again, where if you're trying to validate it and make sure that it's correct, you may want to pull the guidelines. For these sections, I always pull the guidelines just to make sure that I'm finding all the membership that should be there. So if you find something that's incorrect, give us a call. There are occasional instances where something is not pulling correctly. Hopefully it is. But if we have had folks, sometimes get some really strange issues. Like one time, I think it was 2 years ago, an IU used the same word. I don't even remember what it was. Let's just say test. And they used lowercase for one and uppercase for the other. PIMS recognized them as two different things, but for some reason, the summary was not recognize them as two different things. So that was something we had to take care of. So if you see something really funky like that, do let us know. This is just a little bit more explanation of the elementary and secondary tuition rate ADM. The full-time kindergarten ADM will be in here, and any part-time kindergarten, but the part-time kindergarten is going to be multiplied by 0.5. So when you upload it to PIMS in the student calendar fact, you get a full ADM for it there, but in some sections you may have noticed we do multiply it times 0.5 to indicate that it is part-time. Any pre-kindergarten membership that you have will be excluded here. So some of you do have pre-kindergarten membership that you upload to PIMS that is not funded by pre-K counts grants. And you do upload that membership. It is included in your basic ed funding subsidy, but it is not included in your tuition rate ADM. This section also, if you have any juveniles incarcerated in adult facilities, again, identified by the calendar program code, that will be excluded. And then there are some very specific secondary CTC membership that's listed here. If you're not one of those, you can probably ignore that. And those folks are well aware that that's excluded. So when can I see this? Again, we're reviewing back to when can I find this. We have been publishing the 17-18 preliminary summaries. We started with the first one in September. So of course, September was not maybe the most accurate membership, and so you may have been reviewing it and noticed we actually had a couple of districts that were missing quite a bit of membership at that time. So you want to take a look at it. If you have a chance to review it and then you look at the new one, you can see what's different if people you've contacted have corrected what you've asked them to correct. And of course, if somebody has asked you to correct something, you can also see what's been corrected as well. January, we're hoping to see the Section E1 membership. Again, I wouldn't wait till January to make sure that's correct. I would talk with your special ed folks, have them take a look at the APSEM system, make sure that what's entered in there is correct and accurate so that we do pull that, that is accurate from the start. At some point, we will close PIMS for 17-18. Once we close PIMS, you will no longer be able to upload anything into PIMS for 17-18 child accounting. After that point, any changes would have to be made manually. We usually stop allowing overrides pretty early in the spring, probably maybe even February, depending. The window will close in December. We do allow some limited overrides for severe issues. And then the final summary will be published at the end of the year. When we publish the final in May or June, you can also look at the prior year finals to see if any changes were made to those. And you'll recognize that it was updated by the date on the report. So what happens is once PIMS is closed, you no longer have the option to upload anything to PIMS, but we do have a manual process to allow you to make changes to prior year data. And we also sometimes have to make changes based on any audits that came through your LEA. So anytime that happens, we update those finals once per year. So you'll see that updated date. Again, it's going to be somewhere probably in May or June. The older years probably get finalized a little quicker because, you know, if I only have one change for school year 14-15, I can certainly make that change pretty quickly and get that updated. Obviously, this June, the biggest changes will probably be to 16-17 because folks discovered after the information came out that they had changes they need to make. They've sent me the manual forms. We'll update it in our separate database. We'll get that updated and you'll see that again in May or June. And any subsidies that need to be adjusted for those years will be adjusted at that time as well. Once it's finalized, that's when the accountants in the other half of my division, they pull that data. They're using it to establish your basic ed funding calculation. They're using it to establish your tuition for orphans funding. They're using it for special ed funding. They're using it for your tuition rates. I believe they also use it for, I think some of it may be used for aid ratios. So there's a lot of things this membership is used for that can affect your district financially. So you want to definitely take the time, work through it, make sure that you're being credited with the correct information. So for those of you who need a contact person, our main line for our division is listed here. If you dial the main line, you will get a prompt. Child accounting is option 1. And then after that, you will have, it'll say choose option 1 for Lori Sieber and option 2 for Shane Miller, who is our newest staff member. He's been there for, I believe, a little over 6 months now. So those are the options for child accounting at this point. We're hoping to have a number 3 soon. We're working on it. And then the email account, the racad@pa.gov, that's our main email account. So all of us can see that. Many of you have our private emails as well. That's fine. Whatever works best for you, please do that. You also can go on the PDE website to find additional child accounting information that's available to you there. So I think that's all I have. As you know, I could probably continue talking forever, but I think we'll stop there and take some questions.
All right, great. Thank you, Lori. So we will pause for just a minute or excuse me, a minute or two, and then we will move right into the Q&A session. Okay, we'll go ahead and get started here. It looks like all the tech issues have been resolved. So it looks like we just have one question so far. So we'll go out to the AIU to go ahead and read that question.
Okay, our question was in section F of the child accounting membership summary. It is stated that we will receive an invoice for students. Would we also possibly receive a 4605 instead for an invoice? I have 3 students in this section, but they are in districts we have received a 4605 for instead.
And I apologize. I did specifically talk about students who you had contracted with a neighboring district. This could also be students who are in a facility somewhere who you received a 4605 for. But the only thing about your question that that is a little tricky there is that you say, would I receive a 4605 instead of an invoice? If you receive a 4605, you're probably going to also receive an invoice. So if someone else is educating on your behalf and they're uploading the membership that shows up in this section, you would also expect that at some point you're going to receive an invoice for those students. Thank you.
All right, great. So we'll stay here actually at IU 15 for the next question.
My question is how specific do we have to get when we're looking at what's pulling out of our student information system and then what's in the preliminary summary of child count? Because occasionally there's like a difference of 0.0 something or other. And do we have to spend hours trying to figure out what that difference is, or is it like a calculation issue between the two systems?
Right. It's likely if it's something that's 0.00 something, it's probably a rounding issue, and it's probably something that you don't need to worry about. I certainly wouldn't spend hours on 0.005 ADMs. Obviously, you want it to match up. I would be more concerned if the difference was 5 or 10 or something like that. But that's a good question. If it's a very small fraction of an ADM that's different, I would say it's probably a rounding issue based on what's in your SIS versus what's being calculated in PIMS and on the summary. Thank you.
Okay, great. It looks like that actually wraps up the Q&A session for this presentation. So we'd like to thank Lori here for giving her time coming out here today to do the presentation. We greatly appreciate it. Just one quick note before we go into the break. Just to plug this again, this is the link to go ahead and submit your information for the Data Summit drawing. So feel free to go ahead, just go to that link, fill out the information, and then we'll go ahead and do the drawing at the end of the presentation today. So what we'll do now, we will go ahead and take a break, and we will come back actually at, let's say, 10:10 to get started with the second presentation. Thank you.
So, Barry, is that making it through to you as well?
Yeah, we see that.
It's coming through.
All right. So just say next slide, and we should be good to go.
All right, then without further ado, I will get started here. The presentation for this is less of a presentation and more of an activity. It was intended to be an exercise in reviewing the child accounting data through the PIM submission process and all of the templates, through the reports and the summary report. It should be very appropriate, having just sat through and listened to Lori's presentation on all of the information that goes into the summary report. There are a number of files that have been posted to the DQN site, and I hope everyone had a chance to review them and has them, because that is the content for this presentation. It is summary of child accounting report, it is instructional time and membership reports, calendar and calendar fact templates that contain a series of data for a fictitious school district in Pennsylvania that is called Any School District PA. So Dan, if you could go to the next slide. There is a little bit of information for purposes of this activity that are relevant. And Any School District PA is a Pennsylvania school district. There's an elementary school and a secondary school in the district. There's a charter school where several students are enrolled. High school students also may attend a half-day technical school program. The IU operates a handful of classes located in the elementary building and the early intervention program. And there's also a county prison in Any School District PA. If you could go to the next slide. You are part of the PIMS and Child Accounting Review Team at Any School District PA. During the review of the data for 17-18, some inconsistencies and oddities were identified. You've been asked to review the data that was submitted, the reports, and indicate what those issues are and what, if necessary, can be done to correct them. If you can find all of the errors, you are very good at this. And with the presentation that Lori gave, hopefully some of this will be a little bit easier. It shouldn't be too difficult. What we will do is take about 7 to 10 minutes to begin to review the information. We'll come back. I'll identify one of the errors, discuss what can be done to fix it, and how it would impact the school district in terms of the reporting, the data, and the money that the school district would receive based on the error and the fixing of that error. So I'm going to mute. I'm going to ask for a countdown. We'll come back at, let's say, 10:23. Does that should be a good enough time? So take some time at your local IUs to discuss in group, to review some of this information and see if you can identify one or more of the errors, and we'll come back and I'll identify one of them. So you can move to the next slide then.
Barry, the question from this room is, what should we be looking at first?
I'm sorry, Dan?
We had a question here. What should we look at first?
That's really up to you. I would suggest starting with the summary report and then digging down to try to find what the issues are. Provided in those documents are all of the reports and all of the submissions that would have been done by the educating districts, not just what this school district would have submitted. So that would, I guess, kind of be a starting point hint.
Thank you.
Okay, if you want to move to the next slide, we'll go over one of what should be the most glaring thing that could be identified in this information. There's a penalty in one of the sections for instructional time that wasn't met. The IU has a class for 18 to 21-year-old students that is located, as mentioned in the informational piece, that occurs in the elementary building. So the district should verify that the students in this program are actually only receiving the 5 hours a day, or if they have additional time that would allow them to meet that 990-hour requirement for secondary students. If the IU calendar is not correct, the IU will need to upload a corrected school calendar template. If the information that the IU submitted for these students is correct, the penalty will be applied in the adjusted ADM as follows. The required hours for secondary students will be subtracted from that will be the actual hours that they were educated. That total would be divided by the number of instructional, that would list the minimum number of instructional time per day. Divide that by the number of hours that are required for that group per day, which in this case would be 5.5. That would show you the number of days that would be required to meet that required minimum. In this case, and these numbers are very vast for purposes of the math, but 990 subtracting 900 is 90 hours. Divided into 5.5 days, or 5.5 hours per day, that's 16 1/3 extra days that these students would need to meet the requirement if the calendar is correct. That number of days would be divided into the required number of days for those students to calculate the penalty fraction. And then the ADM of that group that's impacted would reduce the ADM in the summary report. Again, this is a very glaring figure because of the significant amount of instructional time that they're not meeting. And in this case, if the district's adjustment factor was a 0.909, the loss of subsidy, if they were to receive $1 million in basic ed, would be about $36,000. Again, this is a very vast difference because of the math, but it does have a significant impact on some districts when you get a penalty. So that's the first one. If you want to go to the next slide, we'll take another 5 or 6 minutes and continue to review and see if you can find another error.
Hey, Barry, this is the remedial class at IU10. We're looking for a hint.
So I could give a very general hint, which may not be very helpful, but discussed in Laurie's presentation, as a school district, you also need to be aware of how other educating LEAs are reporting your children. And that may still be very vague, but without giving it away, I don't know what else I can say. Okay, let's hit the next slide. And another error is that there was a non-resident foster student, if you look on page 5 of the summary report, that the school district reported as a non-resident foster in the tech school program. However, the tech school did not report this student as a non-resident foster, possibly because they were unaware that the student was in fact a non-resident foster. So in section L1, there are 90 days or half of an ADM for this student, when there really should be a full ADM. And what will need to happen to correct this is the tech school will have to submit a delete request for the record for this student that was reported as a resident, and they will have to resubmit a student calendar fact template indicating that the student's a non-resident foster. As Laurie mentioned, the students in section L1 for 1305 and 1306 wards of state are paid subsidy, or I'm sorry, not subsidy, they are paid tuition rate for the district. So the average tuition rate for a school district in Pennsylvania for the 17-18 school year was $10,712 for elementary and $12,029 for secondary. So this error, while the resident membership that would have been reported by the technical school if the error had not been caught would still have received subsidy for that ADM. It would result in approximately a difference of $6,000 because of the differences between the tuition rate and the basic education subsidy that the district would have received. So there are two errors remaining. They are probably a little bit more advanced and hidden, but let's take about another 5 minutes or so to see if anybody can find them. So you can move to the third, I'm sorry, the next slide, Dan. Okay, if you'd like to move to the next slide. Another of the issues was that the IU reported kindergarten eligible students in the EI program on a full day calendar, but the kids were reported as grade K5H. So they were only half-time students. Now, if they were in fact half-time students, then I don't believe that there's actually any adjustment or impact on the district's funding because they're getting the correct ADM attributed for those students based upon the grade. However, if they are half-time students, they should probably be reported on a half-time EI program calendar. If they were full-time students, then the district is only getting a half credit for them, and the IU should report them as full-day kids. If you'll go to the next one, this next issue is probably the most hidden one. And if you look at the student calendar fact templates for all of the reporting districts, there's one student who's actually reported for 1.25 ADM. And that's because in the percentage of time enrolled for the calendar on the calendar fact template, this was a student who the IU reported and the tech school reported. So this is a situation where the district may not know that this student was overreported if they're not working and communicating with the other districts that are educating their children. In cases where students may be overreported, or in cases where students are reported with the incorrect resident status code, or in situations where other adjustments are made to student information, if anybody who was at ACAPA was at the Auditor General's presentation, when they find these things, they do make adjustments, both positive and negative. So they'll give you the money that you were supposed to get based upon the corrections, or they may take money back based upon those corrections. I don't know that there's any school district in Pennsylvania that would want to have to pay back money in a year when they don't expect to have to do that, or to receive money that they should have received several years ago in the current year when they could have used that money then. So you could go on to the next one, Dan. So this is kind of a picture of how this information flows through from PIMS to the PIMS reports, to the summary report, and then the information in the summary report goes into many of the components and the calculations that are used in state school district funding, both basic ed, special ed, transportation, CTC funding, tuition rates. And all of the information in these scenarios, while they are fictitious and it's a mock-up of the information, all of these are things that have actually occurred in school districts in my time in this role. So it's very important to review your information, to communicate and keep in touch with the other entities that are educating your students, whether you're responsible for reporting that membership or they're responsible for reporting that membership. So the final slide is just if there are any questions. I will add this presentation to the list of files that are posted on the website. I just did not want to do that prior to because the answers are in here. So if there are any other questions, I will answer what I can. There may be some that you have district specific that might be better answered by PDE. So I don't know if Lori's still around possibly to speak on any, but thank you.
I'm checking the questions. Doesn't look like we have any questions.
Okay, well, if there are none, then I'll just say that with this presentation, hopefully in collaboration with Lori's, you'll have some information that you can go back and look at your own data and make sure if there are anything that needs to be addressed, that you can do so while there's still some time left on the correction window.
All right, I'll stop sharing, and our last activity before the drawing will be a little bit of a summit survey.
I think Robin from IU21 is going to be facilitating that. I know that there were some issues with the bridge sharing, so I don't know if we might want to take a minute or two to try to address any of those, or if somebody else might be able to do that.
Here it comes. We'll do the drawing at the end of this presentation.
Good morning, everyone. It's Robin Miller from CLIU 21, Schnecksville, PA. Just a quick introduction. Today, we were asked by PDE to get some thoughts on sessions you would like to see from any of the following program offices: data quality, child accounting, curriculum assessment and instruction, English learners, charter schools, special education, safe schools, CTE, and federal programs. The people organizing the Data Summit want to make it something that you're interested in, you gain knowledge from, and to fit all the audiences that will be attending. On the next slide, we'll have a little Mentimeter exercise to share some ideas that you may have on what you would like to see from the program offices.
If you just click on your screen, we'll go to the next slide.
If you would, if you have some ideas of what you would like to see at the Data Summit, please go to www.menti.com. The presentation number is 150294 and enter your ideas. The responses are free form and will be visible to everyone. If you have ideas after today's meeting, you can share them with Adrian at the email address listed or contact your IU point of contact.
Robin, does that mean we're ready to draw?
I am seeing some stuff entered on the Menti. We will keep those and share those with PDE, but I am not being able to share that screen at the moment.
Let me see if I can get in.
Are you still in the share screen?
Yeah, it looks like you've, there you go.
Thank you, everyone, for sharing. If you have any ideas, please send an email to Adrian. And that concludes this, and we will have the drawing. Dan, back over to you.
All right, it just occurs to me that I'm being recorded, so whatever we do here will be captured for eternity. All right, so in order to win this, you will have to, POCs, you'll have to unmute and have your person announce their presence. Otherwise, I'll click the wheel a second time. So we're using this cool little thing called Flippity. We've loaded all of your names into this wheel. And if you show up, please unmute and let us know that you're here. Here we go.
Dan, we're not seeing it at 24.
Oh, hang on a second. I better share it.
All right, Maggie is here at IU15, so she's really excited here, so thank you.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very, very much, everybody, for coming right before the holiday season. I'll wish you all gobble, gobble, and we'll see you back here again in December. And by the way, we will have a second giveaway in December. We'll see you next month.